My name is Rick France. I am a solutions engineer here at Hagerman, and I will be doing this webinar that you are attending today regarding our isometric title block configuration with Plant 3D. This is being recorded, and you'll be able to view this at a later date. We'll be sent a link on the recording also. So I'm going to switch my screen over here, and you should be able to now see my screen. And I'm going to minimize this. I am the only one here, so I am not going to be watching the questions or chat windows while I'm doing the presentation. I will actually start doing that. I will check at the end of the presentation. I will look at the questions and be able to answer at that time. It's just a little difficult. I only have one screen for me to be able to have both up at the same time. That's when I'm going through the presentation. Now, the goal of this particular webinar is basically to be able to show you how to create your isometric title block to get it ready to where you can pull in data that is available for the project, the drawing, the pipeline, even the P&IDs, all from the model and P&IDs, to where you can have your title block completely filled out, as well as setting up your tables such as bill of materials and things like that, and how all that works to set up into your title block template or your drawing template for the isometrics. Excuse me. Right now you should be seeing on my screen a isometric that I created using Final ANSI C, which is the out-of-the-box configuration that comes with the product. Everything you're looking at was just, I produced a drawing with piping, produced this isometric from it using pretty much all the out-of-the-box settings. I'll point out a couple of things that I did change here in just a minute. But as you can see, when I zoom in here on the title block, not all the information came in. Now, part of that is this particular title block's design. First of all, they don't even have an attribute in this title block for area or for type. So that's why they're not filling out. There's also some additional information off to the side here where they have service, pipe spec. They don't have attributes in there, or they don't have them set up out of the box. Some of these have the attributes in there. You can see the insulation spec and insulation thickness did fill out and pull from the pipeline data. But there are several here which either do not have an attribute even defined in it, or if they do have an attribute, they're not set up out of the box, ready to go. So that's basically what we're going to look at. Plus, this is a very generic title block. I want to be able to use my company title block that I've set up for that. So that's kind of the goal here, is to mainly focus on that initially. We're going to start by taking a look at the project properties. Now, I'm going to close this particular drawing because there's no reason to leave it open at this point. And I am going to open up a dummy drawing because that way I can get messages when we're creating isometrics and things to see when they're complete. And I'm going to go to my project setup where all this stuff is configured. Now, this particular title block and everything, like I said, is the Final ANSI C one. I told you I'm using it out of the box with a few minor changes, and we're going to make a copy of this one to create our own custom one, because I always suggest making your own version instead of making any changes to the ones out of the box. But just to show you a couple of things, just to let you know, a couple of the types of settings I've changed is I've set it up already for override existing files, so it defaults that way. I've maximized the congestion to be able to get isometrics on fewer drawings. A couple of other things I've done is, for instance, with the annotations here, I don't personally like coordinates, so I have a tendency to turn those off in my isometrics, but that's just some of the minor things I've done. There's not really outside of that anything I did in my isometric that wasn't out of the box. I just, some changes that I normally make. One other thing that has happened here to the final NCC before I even started was there's a article that I did originally back in 2013 that had to do with pipeline numbers. I'm on Hagerman.com here. I recently have revised it because through other people emailing me and stuff after doing the article, they were having troubles with validation. I worked out those issues and figured out what the problem was, and so just yesterday on our blog they added the revised version of that original article which takes care of the validation issues. So this particular article here, which has to do with pipeline numbers going from P&ID all the way through Isometrics, has already been done on this project. So that was one other thing that was done differently that was not out of the box. And I just wanted to point that out. So basically, a couple of settings here with the overriding of the existing, the level of congestion, turning off the coordinates, and that pipeline number article that I just pointed out on the Hagerman.com has already been performed on this project and on Final NCC. But I want to create my own isometric style that uses my title block that I set up from scratch to work the way I want to. Now I happen to be, my title block happens to be a B-size title block, but it doesn't matter whether I start with a B-size or C-size style to use. I'm going to use the C style because that's the one I set up all those things on, and I want them to carry over to my new style. So I'm going to hit the little, I'm on the, any one of these that you want to be on, change it to Final NCC, hit this plus here, and I'm going to call this new style, didn't mean to have my cap locks on, Vandalay B. Vandalay being the company name, B size being the size of title block that I'm going to be using. Hit create, it creates it, made an exact duplicate of the Final NCC. First thing we're going to do is go over here to title block and display. This is where we're going to mainly live. Before I go there, I do want to point out one thing here with the themes. The only reason I'm introducing themes into this particular webinar at all is because they are set up in your template, and I want to point that out. But you can see here the themes here for the default theme is basically where you set up how it's going to dimension filled welds or inline branches, things like that. And you have additional themes that are called override themes for small bore piping, existing piping, fitting to fitting, just different themes. These are all out of the box. I have made no changes to them, and I just want to be able to point out where they are and what they have to do with, because we will be seeing those in our template setup when we set up the title block. So pointing out where those are back here in title block and display, you can see when I created it, it created a Vandalay B folder with an iso.dwt template. So it basically made a copy of the Final NCC template into the correct folder. We're going to go right over here to set up title block, which is where we're going to live for most of this webinar. As you can see, that is the exact title block template that we're using with Final NCC. I want to be able to show you how to work from scratch, so we're basically going to just blow all this away and erase it. Now you might ask yourself, why start with this template and erase everything and then have to add everything back in? Basically I'm doing that because I don't want to reinvent the wheel with all those ISO themes. ISO themes are, that I just pointed out a minute ago, are handled right here. With that template in the ISO themes, when I go to it, it's pulling in the dimension style, the multi-leader style, table style, and text style that we're going to be using for our isometrics, and the layer system that is also going to be used. So if I wanted to make changes to any of these, it's just as simple as going to the dimension style. This pulls up the same dimension style manager that you see with AutoCAD. and you can create and modify and make changes to whatever your company preference would happen to be. I'm going to pretty much leave all these styles out of the box, what was set there for the final HCC. I have no reason to go through and modify this information for this particular webinar, but you can see here that is basically textiles, just no different than what you would do in AutoCAD. So you can use your own standards that you've created. Over here in the layers, again, fittings are going on the symbol layer, but I can create and go to any layer I need to. If I hit this button up here, you'll see there's my layer manager in AutoCAD. No different. Exactly works the same way as it does in AutoCAD. You just have to predefine these different components and how they're set. So for instance, you'll see reference dimensions are going to layer 0. I want them to go to dimensions, so I'm going to go ahead and change that to dimension, so it puts the reference dimensions on the same layer as all the other dimensions. Override things here is where I have the small bore piping, fitting to fitting, all those different things that I was showing you earlier. Again, how you're going to do all the different layer system for these different settings. So you can go through and set up these styles, your annotation styles, your dimension styles, your layer setup. You can get it customized to whatever you want to out of the box, but this is where you do that when you're working inside that template. What we're going to be concentrating though is setting up the actual template and the drawing area and all of that. So the first thing I want to do is insert my title block. So I'm just going to go to AutoCAD's insert command, browse. Right here you'll see I have a title block. This drawing was created with AutoCAD. It's pretty much out of the box AutoCAD. I haven't added any Plant 3D information save for 3 fields that I will point out here in a minute. And I only did that to save time in the webinar. I'm going to set up 1 field, a 4th one. I'm going to take this title block drawing, hit open. I want it to be at 0, 0. Works best if it's at 0, 0. It does not have to be. I've seen people set these off at different SKUs and things. You're going to get better plotting results, I think, if you continue using 0, 0. And Plant 3D, for the most part, likes things to be at 0, 0. Same scale factor, everything's set, uniform scale. The main thing to remember is you do not want to explode your title block. This is not the title block itself that you're going to be editing at this point. This is placing it in the template. You need to have one in there. It needs to be named title block with a space. It will not work if you rename your title block to something different, because when it's looking for the attributes to add this information, it is looking for that title block. I can place one of any name in here and just use AutoCAD's rename command and rename it to title space block. But I just went ahead and named mine title block to begin with. Okay, it sees that I already have a title block in here. I'm going to redefine it with mine. It places it in there with my logo and everything about my company. One thing to assist me in plotting, sometimes people like to plot by your limits. I have a no plot little rectangle here that represents my paper. It does need to be in model space for the isometrics. This is one time you would not want to use paper space, although I could create a layout tab that's just a viewport looking into paper space that would allow me to use paper space if you wanted to. But I'm going to change my limits. In this case it's a 0, 0 by 1711. And that's strictly just to make it where you can see the grid adjusted to this, basically match my paper layout. Makes it a little bit easier for plotting and everything if you ever decide to plot by layout instead of, or by limits instead of by extents. A couple of settings I personally don't want. This is where you would set it. If you have things you don't like to see in a drawing when it's created, if you want to set it here, such as units and things like that, you need to take care of all that in the template, because that's what I'm working in right now, is the ISO template. Personally, I don't like the grid. I'm going to turn that off. I don't want my snap, because it has settings that were set in that final NCC ones that they were just carried over. I'm going to need my ortho on in a minute, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. I do not like the line weight display myself, so I'm going to turn that off. One other setting that I want in here is I want to make sure my O-snap's at the endpoint. It's just going to be able to, when I'm selecting areas, I'm like draw areas and where the bill of materials go. Makes it a little bit easier if it's set to endpoint instead of node or something like that. So once I've got my settings the way I want it, we're ready to begin to convert this over to what it needs to actually draw. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just get the basic in here so we can see where we are right now based on our title block to see what all we need to set up. I have to have a draw area in order for a isometric to be created. So I can't just exit here and say create myself an isometric. It'll bomb out because I can't find a draw area. So that's the first thing I need to make sure is in here. The draw area is right here. Simply put, select draw area. I'm going to pick the endpoint up here, take it all the way down to the endpoint here, just like drawing a rectangle. And there's my draw area. Now, one thing you can't see here at this point is one of the things that I've seen happen quite a bit with isometrics with the draw area. This is where it will draw the pipe. Let's say it has a piece of pipe that's right here on the edge and a flange, and it's in the draw area. It may put a leader line with some text, and that text may come outside the draw area. The draw area does not control text and staying in the draw area, only that the isometric piping itself is within the draw area. For that reason, you want a little bit of a buffer area, and that's the reason I've turned my ortho on. So I'm going to put a 1/4 inch buffer area by selecting this draw area, and I get the grips just like I would with any other hatch pattern, because that's what it is. You can see it went to the hatch editor. And I'm just going to stretch these in a 1/4 inch each way, give myself a little bit of buffer area. That way, if it ever has text that overlaps a little bit, it should still be within my title block area and not on top of the thing. Now, the buffer area is just a that 1/4 inch is just what I've noticed seems to work best, is to have like a little 1/4 inch buffer area in there. So it will only draw within that green area right now, and it may have some text overlap a little bit, but it's not going to go into my line. It's just going to possibly be in here, which that's why I put that buffer area in there. Now, the first thing I want to do is see what is actually working already. So I'm going to go ahead, return to project setup here, and save my changes to my template, and go ahead and exit out of the project setup. Now, one thing I want to point out here is by doing this, the first thing you'll notice is over there in my project manager, my Vandelay B does not show up at all, and I need to get that in there. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come over here and just hit this button right here, which is my group line number. That basically resets everything. You can see here where now I can see my Vandelay B. So it basically refreshed my screen for me. Stretch it out. There's all the different line numbers that are in my project at this time. So we'll go ahead and create a production ISO. I'm going to give it a revision number of 0. Basically, because of those settings I hadn't finalized. You see, they carried over. I'm good to go by just hitting create. So we're going to let that create for a second. And while it's creating, one of the things I personally like to suggest to people to do is if you are not going to be using these particular styles, then why keep them? I can easily go into the project, take the styles that I do not want, and just simply delete them. Once I do that, you can see here, I'll hit the group line number again, it removed them from the project. Once, if I ever need to pull those back in, the only reason I kept Final NCC is because I have that drawing in there and I may need to refer to it at some point. But once, if I ever need those back into the project, I can go to like the sample project or default project, just copy them from there using Windows Explorer into this project. It's good to go. So I can always get them back in here by simply just copying that folder. But why have a bunch of folders in here you don't need? Real life, I probably would keep Final NCC in there. But here's what it created, that particular isometric, and right now we're concentrating on the title block area here. So I've used fields for these particular three project information, so it pulls those in. I'm going to use a field here also for the project number. I do not have to use fields. I can map them just like they do out of the box with that Final NCC and everything, or I can use fields. I'm going to be able to show you both methods in case you ever wanted to do that. My title block that I use, if I was using this for some type of other schematic, it's already set up to use fields, so that's the reason I'm just using the same title block. Why reinvent the wheel if I've already got it set up that way? But a couple of things that did come over: pipe spec, date, and revision number. Those picked up automatically without me doing anything else to my title block, simply because my attribute happened to be named, and it was a fluke when I first did this title block the first time. It happened to, my tags of my attributes happened to be named the same thing as the variable inside my IsoConfig file. So in other words, this one, I'll show you in a minute, but this one was called date, so it picked up the date. This one was called rev, this one was called pipe spec, and those happen to be the exact same name in the config file out of the box. Just a few of these that are set out of the box that we can actually see happen automatically without having to do anything. Area is another one. Mine actually is set up with the correct tag name for area. It didn't put an area in there because it has to pull that information from the drawing, and I wanted to point out that is on the source file of the piping. If I go to the properties of that particular drawing, you can see my drawing area was not filled out, so therefore it did not know what to put in the area of my title block on the isometric. I'm going to make this area 51 for obvious reasons. Say OK. The next time I run an isometric, it will fill out the area now. But let me point out what it's showing here and how those attributes are set and how to map the rest of these attributes to where they work correctly. So I'm going to close this out, go right back to my project setup. Set up title block. I'm on Vandal AB. Make sure you're on the correct one. And we're going to set up the attributes in this particular project. I'm getting a little bit of a cold here, so I'm having a little trouble breathing out my nose. I apologize for that. Basically, we're going to set up title block attributes because this was a fully attributed title block here that I started with from AutoCAD. Title block attributes are set up using this tool right here on your project manager. Now when we go here, it opens up the that particular palette automatically in the block editor, which we don't need, so I just went ahead and closed it. And you can see I've got the attributes set up here. So because I had an attribute called pipe spec, date, area, and rev, those match the IsoConfig file out of the box. It automatically filled those out. The rest of these have to be mapped though. Now couple more here that I did not fill out that would have if I would have had the correct name is sheet and total. If I would have named this attribute SH, my sheet would have filled out automatically. Likewise total, TL, it would have filled out automatically. So just by having that same correct attribute name there, that will make those fill out without me having to do any mapping whatsoever. The others here for the P&ID drawing, line number, service, installation spec, thickness, maximum pressure, maximum temperature, those are going to have to be filled out automatically or have to be mapped. A couple of project numbers, another one I could map, but I want to show you how I set up those fields just in case you decide to do it that way. So I'm going to go here to project number, and to be able to put a field in here, as you can see coming from AutoCAD, it's a single line attribute. There's no way to put a field in. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is go over here to my properties palette and change it to multiple lines. Now I can put a field into that attribute. So I'm going to double click it. Now I have this box here. Open multi-line editor. Here's the insert field right here. And I'm inserting project information. So anything here under these field categories can be placed in here. The one I don't want to do is I don't want to put a field in date. I normally do that on other drawings, but I don't need to here because of it being named date. It will put that in automatically for me. And if I put a field in there, it would override it. The only way I would be able to do that is not name my attribute date. But for instance, client project location. Client and location are custom data that I placed into my project originally, and project, I want to pull in the project information. So just to show you client there, if I went over here to current project custom, it's pulling in from the project category that I created. If you've ever taken a class from me, you've seen me create these before. It's pretty basic there. And I made it uppercase. So that is the way I did client. Location came in from the same category. Location and project, I used the current project description right here to go into project, although I made it uppercase. That's the main reason I like fields over letting it fill it in automatically, because it will, if I let it fill in automatically, it's not going to convert everything to uppercase. I like it to type in title case. I want it uppercase in my title block, so I prefer the field method myself for those three because of that. And since I'm doing a field there, what I'm actually wanting to put here is the project number. So I'm going to do the current project number, hit OK, it places the field in there, hit OK, hit OK. Now it automatically made this all uppercase. That doesn't matter. I could have renamed it or whatever. If I don't want it uppercase or I want to rename it, best way to do that is to come over here to the, I'm just going to call it project num, so it fits in there a little bit smaller. So that set up the project number information to where that's a field just like the other three. So that's the way I did those particular ones. The rest of these, however, now these three here we're going to save for P&ID information. That's what we're going to use the line designation table for. So I'm not going to set those three up right now, but I do want to set up and map service, line number, installation spec, and installation thickness. One thing I want to point out about installation thickness comes over as a whole number. I wanted it to have an inch symbol, so the way I did that myself was I have a piece of text in here for the inch, which is left justified, and then I have the attribute set up as right justified, going so that they go opposite directions, and that way it will put in the whole number and I get my inch symbol in there. So that's the reason, that's the one thing I did different. It does mean I always have an inch symbol in my title block right there if I don't have installation. That's the only downside to that, but that was the only method I could use to get inches in there, or if it was metric, I'd need a piece of text that said millimeters or whatever. That's the way you can do something like that. But to get these others mapped, I'm going to hit map attributes here. Now I have to do a disclaimer. Because I've done this in the past, it just automatically says map service to service. It knew to map installation thickness. It was somewhere, I haven't figured out where it stores that information from the first time I did this into the registry, and it just picks all that up from the registry. But if I wouldn't have had that ever done this before, which is probably the situation you're in, it's going to be listing these as not mapped, and so therefore it wouldn't have these in here. But simply mapping them, and I'll do the SH up here even though I don't need to, is basically you would come in here and say, this is all the information, this is my tag of the attributes that are available, and this is all the information that it can pull in from the project, that it could pull in from the pipelines, the pipeline groups, any information that you might need. So I would just simply find that information, pull it in. This happens to be a variable in the ISO config file that it's pulling in that way. But if I wanted to set something up such as, I'm going to go ahead and say not mapped there, so since it's already automatic. But let's say the project num here, if I wanted to set that up instead with a field, I could have just as easily came in here and mapped to the project number right there. Now, one thing you will notice is it's got all the project information. However, something like this client location, which were the custom ones I have, they did come over, like here's client. So I could set up that one to where it's working without the field. It's working, pulling the information from the project that way. Again, no, I can't control upper and lower case here. But if I did come in here and set client and project and things like that here, it would overwrite those fields. So I want to make sure they stay in the map since I'm using the fields instead. Once you have this set the way you need it, it's as simple as just saying OK. Now there's one other one in here that I did not set yet, which is drawing description. I could make this to where it pulls in a drawing description from somewhere, but there's not really one in here. I just want it to say piping isometric the majority of the time, and then if I need to ever change it manually, I can set that by just setting the default. And instead of setting it there so that it just doesn't change that to uppercase, come over here to the default value and say piping isometric. And so it becomes the default, but being an attribute, I can still make that a change if I ever need to. So I've got everything set but the P&ID information at this point. If I wanted to, I could, if I didn't have the attributes already in here, I could come in here and start using these attribute categories. So I could say, let's say I wanted a project attribute for the client. I'm going to make it standard left, how I want it justified, what my text height to be, and hit place, and it allows me to place that attribute in there. Since I already had a client in there, it just automatically changed it to client 1. In this particular case, I really don't want that. I just wanted to show you that even if you don't have attributes in your title block, you can add those attributes using this information right here. Like if I wanted a file name one, place it. I just didn't change my height or anything, and locate it where you want it in the actual drawing. In this case, I had all the attributes already predefined in my AutoCAD type template already, so there was no reason to have to use those categories there and set that all up. So I'm just going to hit close. At this point, I'm ready to close out of here, so I'm going to close out of the block editor. Now, we made changes to attributes. That means that this one here still contains all the old attributes, like for instance the project number where I renamed it. It's still got project number instead of project num. So I need to synchronize this title block to the changes I made. Anytime you have attribute changes, just like in regular AutoCAD, it has to be synced. The problem with attribute sync of AutoCAD is since I added a field here and I added a default value there, those will not pick up with an attribute sync. So the best way, if you want to make sure, especially when you're dealing with fields and stuff like that, you want to erase your title block and reinsert it. And I'm just keeping all the same defaults. Now you can see the field came in, and so did my default value. And anything, if I would have renamed any attributes or anything, this is the actual one that I was changing. Only necessary to do that if you make a change to the attributes, such like I did. So at this point, just to see where we're at, we're going to go ahead, return to project setup, save the changes, get all the way out, and make sure everything is working correctly. All right, so here we'll go ahead and create another ISO. I meant to make that Rev 1, forgot to, so it will default to Rev 0 automatically. After we do this, we're going to be ready to set up the line designation table. Now we're going to give it a second here before I go show you some preliminary stuff to do that. But basically a line designation table is just an Excel file. I'm going to go ahead and point it out while it's making that there. So you can see here in my Isometric folder of my project, I've got this pipeline group Excel file. That is my line designation table. So we're going to come back to that in just a second. Since it created this one, we'll go ahead and open it, and you can see pretty much everything in my title block is now filled out, except for the 3 P&ID pieces of information, which we didn't set those up yet because those are the ones we're going to pull in from that line designation table or the Excel file that's created from P&ID. So let's go point those out real quick. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now also, this is filled out because I've added it to the pipeline drawing. This is filled out because the pipe, that information was added to the pipe. So basically what you put into your model is what you're going to get out of it. Back on the P&ID, I'm just going to open one up real quick, which happens to have that particular, the pipeline we've been drawing is this one right here. That's the one, the isometric we've been creating, which is the same PW1100 or 1000. Now, looking at the data manager, and I'm going to have to move this information off there, and I'm going to go ahead and say P&ID project data. Basically, I'm pulling off information from the pipeline group. Now, some of this information would be in my pipeline segment. If I went to my primary line segment, it has some information like design pressure, design temperature, and stuff. Remember, one of them was maximum design, maximum pressure, and maximum temperature. So I could use some of this information here that was already filled out in the primary line segment out of the box. The problem is this is by pipeline group that is pulling in this information. And as you can see here, when I look at PW1000, I've just sorted by the tag. I've got 4 different line items that have PW1 that are part of that PW1000. So if I started filling out this information and that's the information I tried to use in my line designation table, it's not going to know which one to use. So, you know, unless these all have the exact same information, which they probably should, it's going to get confused. I think it bombs out, if I remember correctly. Last time I tried it, it just bombed out because it saw 4 of them and went, I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to reference, so I'm not going to do anything. So basically, this line designation table has to come from the pipeline group. You can see here, when I look at the pipeline group of this project, I've got 3 pieces of information from which are the 3 attributes I'm going to use in my isometric. They were not there out of the box. If you went and looked at any other project out of the box, this information, those 3 particular items were not there. I had to add them because basically the pipeline group doesn't have anything about temperature and pressure. So I had to add those to them, and just to recap in case you've never done that, basically I just went to the project properties, or project setup rather, whatever you want to call it, P&ID drawing data, and my pipeline group, which is here under P&ID class definitions, and I added 3 properties for maximum pressure, maximum temperature, and drawing number. Basically just hit add. Maximum pressure and temperature are both strings, so it was simply just saying, and I'm just going to call this one maximum P, make it a string, hit OK. That created, that's what I did for each one of these. How I named them didn't matter. Well, I could name them whatever I wanted to. I just chose max pressure, temperature, and drawing number. Drawing number is an acquisition, so the way I'm going to remove the max P one I just created. The way I created that one, I'm just going to call it DN just to have something. Did it as an acquisition, hit OK, and told it to get drawing properties for the drawing number right here. And that's how I set up that one. You can see they're identical. But I'll go ahead and delete that one. So that's the way I've got the 3 properties into my pipeline group. Once they were there, and I'm just going to hit cancel. Once they were there, it was simply just filling out the information, whether I did it in the actual item itself in the properties palette or here in the drawing manager. It did not matter. You'll notice a couple of them have question marks for the drawing number. That's because those are on 2 drawings. It will only pull over one drawing per item. And if it sees there on two drawings, and that's because it's going through off-page connectors here, then it doesn't know a single drawing to put it on, so it puts a question mark there. When I export this, it just puts nothing at all. And I'll show you how you can deal with that in a minute. But anything that crosses drawings, you're not going to automatically be able to pull in a drawing number. For that reason, you may not want to have a drawing number at all, but I wanted to be able to show you how you could do that, so that's the reason I added those three. Once I got those added, it was simply doing an export of the active node only, and I did a browse, and I placed this file in my Isometric folder called Pipeline Group, because you can see it puts Treadstone Pipeline Group in there. I wanted this to be able to work from project to project, so I didn't want to put that Treadstone in there, which is my project name. I wanted it to be generic, so I just made it Pipeline Group.xls just to keep it generic, so when I copy it from one project to another, it's not going to automatically rename that file for me. And so that's the reason I chose to make it a more of a generic name. And when I create a new project, it will copy this, the LDT file and the LDT information mapping from one project to another. So this is one of those things you set up once and you're done. Now, that's the way I created it. I'm going to just hit cancel and not create it again, but that's the way it was created. I had to add those properties to the P&ID, and then I had to create an export from P&ID to an Excel file. Now, that particular file, when I look at it, basically looks like this. I did the active node only because I didn't want to have to be picky and make sure. If I would have done all nodes, I would have had to go through there and possibly, you know, make sure I pick the correct node when I'm setting this up. But keeping an active node only, this serves one purpose. I don't have to come in here. And as you see, it does put a drawing number column in here, but that doesn't give me any information. That's just the way it outputs for the pipeline group. But there's all my information that it sent out. These that that are blank, I could actually fill it out here if I wanted to put some information. For instance, this one here, this line, I could like the starting point, or I could put both drawings. I can just copy and paste, get the information in there. Just realize when you're doing stuff like this, I may be making it to where it's available for that isometric. It does. If I tried to import this back into the P&ID, it would not do me any good because the drawing number is not going to overwrite based on what I have here. So it'd be something I have to do all the time. For that reason, I probably personally would not use drawing number on my P&ID, on my isometrics, but a lot of people do, so that's the reason I wanted to show that. So I've got this information in here. I'm going to go ahead and save it and close out of Excel, and let's show you how to set up that LDT file to work with my title block. So I'm going to open up the properties, back into the project setup, get right back to my title block here, isometric drawing setup, and pick up setup title block. This is set up right under title block attributes, so we're going right back to where we were before. But you'll see here, I've got an extra tab. Let me close that, called LDT Setup. Again, LDT stands for Line Designation Table. I'm going to browse. Since I've done this in the past, it just automatically went to where it was, but browse and locate where you have the file that you're going to set it up. It needs to be in your project someplace. It's the best place to put it so that it's not looking at other projects. There's the Pipeline Group Excel file. I'll hit open. It's going to see that there's only one worksheet in there, so that I only have one. It just went to that one. If I would have done the active all nodes, then I would have to make sure I picked the right one there. You'll see the header row is set to 1, but I could change that if I wanted to, but by default 1 is correct when you do the export. If I was doing a manual Excel file for this, I may need to define that header row. Line number column is automatically set to drawing number because that's the very first one. So I'm going to hit view LDT so I can view the file here. And you can see, again, drawing number is blank. It's not going to do anything. It's looking for the line number. My line number is the tag. So that's when I need to set this line number column to. So we'll set it up to tag. Once I've done that, then it's just simply mapping these attributes again. So I'm going back to map attributes. Here's maximum temperature. And as you see, it sees those columns now that were in that LDT file, so they've been added to my list. So there's maximum temperature, maximum pressure, going to maximum pressure, and drawing number here for P&ID.-DWG attribute. It's going to take drawing num. Now I am picking drawing num, not drawing number, because remember that column was blank. It's the way it outputs on P&ID for that particular pipeline group. Because as far as P&ID is concerned, the drawing number doesn't matter for the pipeline group, so that's why it blanks them out. But I wanted to use it, so drawing num there, hit OK. Again, if you still have the place option if you need to, but I'm going to hit close that out since I was mapping existing attributes. Save the changes. Since I didn't actually change attributes in the title block, there's no reason to erase and sync that one up again. I can just use the one that was there. Now, we'll run the tests. I'm going to go ahead and return the project setup, save the changes, come back over here. Well, hit OK first. And we'll run that particular ISO again. This time I am going to make sure it has Rev2 in there. Say create. Now, while it's creating that, a little side note about the LDT settings and that pipeline group Excel file I created. When I create a new project and I use the copy project function, that is, I don't know if it'll let me do this. Well, yeah, it will. When I use the copy project function and go and get the project XML for Treadstone, all these settings we just set, are you sure you want to exit? Yeah. All these settings we just set for those LTT files, for the everything, will carry over to the new project. So I don't have to do this but one time. It will carry over and over again. But in addition, it will make a copy of this pipeline group Excel file that was in the original project. So one thing to keep in mind whenever you do this, until you run an export on the new project, this is the project information from the old project. So it's not going to update automatically. You have to do that export, and it will copy that over in the new project. But opening up here, there you go. My title block is completely filled out, pulling in project information, pulling in pipeline information from the model, pulling in information from the actual project model drawing. It's also pulling in information from the P&ID via that exported file. If the P&ID information changes, I need to export it again, rerun my Isometrics to get that P&ID information, or I can manually change them in the file, either way. But it's pulling information from 4 or 5 different places, filling out my title block entirely. That was my goal. I want it to where people can just click the title block, click an ISO, create it, it fills everything out. We're done. We don't want to have to come in here and manually fill out any information. We want to use the information and data that's already there in the project. So there you go, that particular one. And I kept this one pretty simple. I could have a lot more information in here. I just kept it pretty simple because we didn't want to have to spend an hour here if you watching me fill all this information out. But it's obvious I have a lot more setup to do here to create in my title block. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Let's go fill in some more of the missing information here that is left to do. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add a north arrow. North arrow is placed using place north arrow right here. Place north arrow. I'm going to do an upper left one, which is the default. And I'm just going to eyeball it for now because it's a little big in my opinion. I want it to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to scale this thing after I placed it to something like 0.03. This is a B-size 11 by 17 drawing. I don't want it to be, I want to get as much drawing space as I can and limit the size of some of this other thing, other information. But this north arrow is really important. The reason being, your isometric is going to be created based on, now I'm just eyeballing it there. I probably in real life would be a little more specific, but I just eyeballed it there. The thing I have to also remember here with this north arrow is I don't want any piping to be drawn there. I don't want it to see a piece of pipe coming straight up and just go ahead and draw right through the north arrow. So that's why we set up this no draw area, because I couldn't just clip it out, this area, and make the box. It's going to be a square, the draw area. So the no draw area allows me to just come in here, and again, I'm just going to eyeball it a little bit larger than my north arrow. You can see it made it that reddish area where it put in there, and that's the no draw area. So it won't put a piece of pipe there. Now the direction of this north arrow can be changed even after the fact, any direction you want it, but this determines how it draws the isometric, because it's using north in your actual drawing to decide how to draw it. We're going to leave it upper left here for now. In a little bit we'll swap it just so you can see how that affects your drawing, just to show you. As far as the appearance of the north arrow, you can change that if you like. You just need to open it up in the block editor. Realize it's a dynamic block using visibility, so you will have to change all 4 different visibility states in that dynamic block if you want to make it look differently. I do not suggest just taking one you created in the past and using it in place of this one. You want to take this actual block and change it in the block editor so that it looks how you want it to look. But this block is very special, not only the name, but these 4 visibility states and how they affect your ISO. So in this particular case, we're going to leave it there. So you have to have all 4 visibility states for this to work correctly. So again, my suggestion is, if you want to change the appearance of how it looks, just go to the block editor at this point on that and make your changes there, and just make it look however you want it to. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on our bill of materials. Right here is my table setup. Now there's a couple of things that I highly suggest. You really want to get your table set up before you start placing bill of materials, because if there's some changes we're going to make for column widths, things like that, that if we do that, went through all that trouble and set up those column widths and text color and things like that, the second we change the table setup, it's going to go right back to the defaults. So you kind of want to get how you want this to look first on your table setup. So I'm going to come over here to table setup. You can see here on the table layout tab, I have 4 different types of tables, all corresponding to the ones here. So bill of materials, cut piece, weld list, and spool list all are represented as a table type. So you really want to get these set up with the information you want first. Right now you can see I'm looking at bill of materials grouped with category titles, because under bill of materials you have different layout templates, 3 of them. They're basically considered simple, semi-complex, and complex, which you'll see that later when we deal with it. But that's only for bill of materials. When I'm looking at cut piece list and weld list and spool list, there are not different types of template layouts, only for bill of materials. Now, we'll go ahead and look at cut piece list here. Let's say I wanted to move columns around here. It's as simple as drag and drop to get them in whatever sequence you want. If you want to add a column, you add column, and this is the pipe information that is available for that cut piece list. So if I wanted to add information such as a schedule or pressure class or something like that to a cut piece list, which don't make sense to me, but I mean anything here, I could add center of pipe elevation if I wanted to. You just select it. I'm going to do this. I'll do status. Hit OK. It adds the column. If you want to see the column, it does have to be activated, and then you can move it to any location within here that you might want. If you don't want to see it, just go ahead and uncheck it. Once I've added it here, it's there. and it's whether I have it activated or not. Now I can hit cancel here since I hadn't done that yet, and it would get rid of it. But there's your cut piece list and how you're going to set that up. Weld list, very similar. Again, add columns. What information do you want to add from any type of weld? And your spool list. Because all the lists work alike, I'm not going to go sit here and customize these three lists. I'm going to just use them out of the box. I'm pretty much going to use most of this out of the box. But the bill of materials, you can see here grouped with categories. If that's what I have selected here, when I hit OK, when I do add a bill of material here, all four of these work exactly the same. When I add bill of material, you basically have to define an area that that bill of material will be in. So just like the draw area here, I'm going to pick an endpoint here, it placed in the bill of material information. I had it on group with categories, so it automatically used that type of setting. I do not have to redraw it to change settings, so I could simply come over here to table setup, say I want to use the grouped with independent columns, hit OK, it adjusted it to that particular setting. Same thing with simple. I'm going to use a simple BOM. And so there it is as a simple BOM. Now, just to show you, if I was to use it just like it is right now, I've got one I've done in the past here just to open up here to show you. You can see here one of the columns, I didn't make any, this is exactly as it is out of the box, one in that same area. One of the columns for schedule class, for instance, is giving me the 40 to 150. Me personally, I don't use that particular column. Reason being, my description tells me my schedule and my class. So to me, it's redundant information. Some people like it. It's totally up to you. But that's one I'm going to skip here and turn off for that reason. Again, go to table setup, uncheck that box, hit OK, it drops that particular column. So that's how those columns are working. You can add additional information from any property and you activate turning them on and off. Now because I dropped that, my rows are kind of different sizes now because when it was in there it had double row because of the thickness on it. If I want to get those into a more convenient row setting at that point, I need to delete that and just re-add that in there and it will be more of a single line columns now, or row heights. We'll get a little more detailed on the row heights in a minute. First thing I want to deal with here, and again, this is once you have this set up to appear the way you want it, that's when you want to start playing with row heights and column widths and things like that. Because if I come back here to table setup and make a change, it's going to reset all these things to what to the default settings. Likewise, if I came in here and made a change to the cut piece list, hit OK, it's going to reset any column widths and stuff I had set, even for the bill of materials. So you want to be sure that you've got all your table setup done first. And that may mean setting them up, testing them, seeing how they look. Once you've got this with the information you want to portray, then you're really ready to start playing with the formatting of how it actually looks. So you can see here my overall column width, or for table width rather, is 5 inches. That's how much I have to work with if I'm keeping it in this space. I don't need a buffer area like I did with the draw area for this. It's 5 inches is what it is. The widths of these are all set relative. So that's a 0.556, that's a 0.833, so there's kind of weird relative widths that it spreads them out over. Again, if I look at this original, I closed that, did not mean to do that. If I look at this original here, you can see that nominal diameter. That's causing 2 rows there because of the size of the bolt set. I have a lot of space here for quantity and a lot of space here for ID, maybe too much. And my descriptions are quite large. I want to try to get this condensed down into a more where it fits in here a little bit better the way that I want it to look. So I want to set very specific column widths here, of this being 3/8 of an inch for the ID, the quantity being 1/2 inch. And I'm just making up numbers here, keeping them round for this. But I'm going to set all that up in there to get this a little, to control this. Likewise, I don't want to just say nominal diameter there. I want to include size, because everything's not a that bolt set was not a nominal diameter. That was a size. So I want to give both pieces of information. I want to actually change that header. Now, I could physically come in here and just change it right here. Say size/ND. Problem is, again, what if I come in here ever and change from one to the other? Well, actually, let me hit cancel. Problem is, in doing that, if I decide I needed to make once I get my column widths in here, if I want to set some things and I redo this again this way, it's going right back to the default settings. Even if I've done all my column widths and I decide I need to make this bigger at that point, it's going to go back to the default settings. And I want to get it to where it remembers this, and I don't have to worry about those default settings. Again, this is, like I said, after I've got my table set up done. I could come in here and set up column widths in the properties palette. The problem there is, let's say I change this, since it's doing everything by a relative percentage, as soon as I change that cell width to 3/8, it really didn't maintain. It went a little bit larger than 3/8. And if I came in here and changed this one to, let's say, 1 inch, well, it's going to readjust. Well, let me make that one smaller. Well, it probably did make that one a little bit bigger, did it? It changed the width of that one. So as soon as I start changing these things to the widths I want, it's going to start adjusting column widths, and it's going to change. And I could spend all day trying to get these the widths I wanted them. So there's an easier way. But I can't do it while I'm in here. So I'm going, for some reason my Zoom Extents is not working. I'm having to type it. So I'm going to go to Return to Project Setup and close this out and hit OK. There's a file called the isoconfig.xml file. I'm going to go to the project here. Whoops. And under Vandal AB, there's the isoconfig XML file. Oops. For the one I just created. So we're going to open that up in Notepad. These are set in the template settings section, so I'm just going to do find, go straight to temp. I put the little greater than, less than sign, whichever one that is, there for finding it, because that way it goes straight to it. You can see here, this is for template information. It's doing a layout option of simple, semi-complex, and complex. As you remember, those were the 3 different templates being used for the bill of materials. So if I come down here a little bit further, I'll see in the very first one here, if I pay attention to my template name, this one is the simple one, which is the one I was using there. So here's my column width information for the simple one. If I was doing the complex, the semi-complex one, which was that, breaking it up in different ones, you can see it, that one's here, and there's the column width settings for that one. We're dealing with simple, so I'm just going to stick with it. And so right here, since I know I have 5 inches in thickness, as long as these total up to that 5 inches, it will give me exact column width. So I'm going to make this one 3/8 of an inch. We'll make this one 1/2 inch. I'm going to make this one 3/4 of an inch. And you can see it goes to quite a few decimal places for whatever reason. Adding those all up, that means I need for the next one to be 3 3/8 for my description. And that will give me exactly 5 inches if I added those up, which will make that column, as long as I've got it drawn 5 inches, it will be the correct column width. If it's bigger than 5 inches, but I draw that boxed area, then it's going to use that as a percentage setting, and it's going to do no telling what. You also notice here my header display name. So this is where I could set this to be size/ND. and it will make that the header all the time instead of switching back automatically to ND. And I can control alignment and things like that, but that's really all I want to control here is those column widths. If you look down through here, you'll be able to find the settings here for the cut piece list, for the weld list, for anything, and you can set those column widths the way you want them. You just need to make sure you know how wide it's going to be and make sure everything adds up exactly, because if I did something like this, 3.75 there, doesn't add up to 5 inches, it's going to make some wild adjustments to try to get that as a percentage. And it will also update this file to calculate based on that. But as long as they add up exactly, it will work. Once I've got this set, I'm going to save it, come back into that setup file. Now to get that to actually work, I've got to place this again. So bill of materials, place that window area. If you looked at this now and did a distance on each column, you'll see this one's 3/8 of an inch, this one's a 1/2 inch, and so on. They're all exactly the sizes I typed in there for that, the widths, adding up to the 5 inches. So I have a little bit more control over it that way. Also, I'm looking at this table. I don't like those text fonts. I want this one to be a little bit bigger. I want these to be a little bit different text font, maybe Arial, things like that. I want to fix some things like that, and that's where these ISO themes come into play. I'll go here into my table style. I'm not going to change the table style. I'm just going to actually, or create my own table style. I'm just going to change it to what I want it to be. And but once I come in here, it's just the same table style editor that comes with AutoCAD. So you can see here, I'm going to first look at the title. So instead of using this ADESC ISO Imperial text font, when I brought in my title block, I brought in some text fonts also because they were being used in my title block. So I have one here for VI Bold. That's the one I'm going to use. I'm going to keep it the 32 inch text height. I'm going to use the VI Bold for my title where it says Bill of Material. For those headers, I'm going to change that to my VI Arial. And I'm going to make those 0.075, so they're a little bit smaller than the text of the header of the title. And same thing with the data. For that, I'm going to use my VI Standard. I'm going to make them 1/16 of an inch high. This is an instant thing as soon as I hit close and OK. So somewhere in there, I accidentally left off. Typed in the wrong size for my title, didn't I? Let's see, let's go back to title here. I bet I left it. Yeah, see, I typed in 6 inches by accident. I didn't even realize I did that. No, it's 0.09. That's good enough. All right, okay, close, okay. Now, because that one went a little berserk with that text height earlier, let me go ahead and delete this and redraw it. Wow. There we go. So bill of material, place it back in here. I would have placed it back in here anyways because it needed to adjust the row heights. But you can see my text fonts are a little bit nicer now. It's got my bolder, larger text for the title, using Arial there for my things. And those were just textiles, AutoCAD textiles. And then it's using the 1/16 inch high text there. So it adjusted those heights and things based on the textiles I set up there in the ISO theme. Right here, now a reminder, what I did there with the column widths, that's not a permanent fix. That was just, if I ever came and changed the table setup to something else and back again, it would have messed the column, it would have changed the column heights back or the column widths again. That's something you want to do. In this, now the setting of the fonts, I can do that at any point, but the setting of these column widths and row heights and the text color here, see how this is using a cyan text color? That's a pain. I get that complaint a lot and have to do a lot of different have to do some things with that. Basically, if you highlight this, you'll see in the properties palette, it's using a text color 0, 255, 255. Changing and plotting monochrome won't fix that. You have to change this by unlocking those cells and then changing them to a color such as BiBlock, and then you want to lock the content and format again to get those to be a different text color, where they'll print black on a black and white on a color printer instead of color, because the monochrome will not affect it. But there you go, I got that one set up. I'm going to go ahead and do one more area here just to show you, because I can see I'm taking a little longer than I meant to. I'm going to add a cut piece in here, and I'm going to set that over here with a 4-inch width. For this one, you can see it's using the same fonts. Now, to select these cells sometimes it gets a little hairy. I'll go ahead and change those to the white also. I'm killing a couple of birds with one stone here. And another thing I want this to go up instead of down. So I'm going to go to the Properties palette, see Direction. I'm going to change that to up. Even though it doesn't put it at the bottom, it will put it at the bottom. Now I want to show you some settings for the row heights here real quick. Notice here my row heights, I'm an aesthetic person, are 1/4 inch from one to the other. I want these to match so that everything lines up when it does put it in here. And it's simply coming in here and changing the row height. I'm on the table height right now. All right, so the row height here, I'm going to set the cell height to 1/4 inch. This one I can set in the cells here, and it will remember it from then on. So we'll set those to 1/4 inch. Set this one, so I'm controlling all my formatting to where it will look the way I want it to look. Even though that put it up there, that's okay. It still understands this is the draw area. It just does that automatically. But that will keep those lined up. I need a no draw area so that my piping doesn't draw in that area. So I'm going to, again, put my no draw area here the same. Let's put it there. 4-inch wide so that it doesn't draw any piping in there. So right there you can see I've got added the cut piece list. Again, weld list, spool list, they all work the same way. Once I've got those defined though, we're ready to run not our final test here, but close to it. We'll go ahead and do this one, hit OK. Because of that one there, I know it's going to create more than one drawing, so I'm going to remove this one from the project. And let's go ahead and say Production ISO. We'll make this Rev 3, hit Create. And I've got one more thing to show you to finish up here after it creates this one. I'll show you in this here while it's creating. One of the things you'll notice, it's going to fit a lot better than it did at this point here. But there's a couple of things that are going to be a little bit, going to cause two lines here. One is the text width. That's going to be, some of these will be too wide, it's just a matter of text width. This ball valve though has this long pattern in here. No matter what I do with the text width, it's going to be just too much for this to handle. So I'm going to show you two ways to fix something like that. One on the fly, one permanent. And that will be the end of this webcast. So we're almost done here. Let it finish doing this one here. I guess we'll go ahead and do the long pattern. Well, probably don't want to do it while it's creating the isometric. There we go. All right, so you can see that caused it to do 4 different patterns here. But when I get in here, if I look at this, see these are not nice and lined up, 1/4 inch spacing, everything exactly what I wanted. Come up here, got a little bit of width issue here that's happening. And there's my schedule 40. You know, width of my text would fix something like that. This one though, again, long pattern's an issue. So I'm going to show you two ways to fix those. First of all, the long pattern. Over here, if I go open up my piping drawing, this happens to be that ball valve. I'm using family description, which I'll need to point out that too also before when I come in there in a second. I'm using family description, so that's where it's pulling in this long pattern information. So I could simply come in here and just erase that from the family description, and now when I run my next time, it won't have that information in there. Makes it a little bit, will make it fit a little bit more. That's for this valve only. If I put another ball valve in there, it's going to say long pattern. If I want to make that a permanent fix, I need to fix that in my spec and in my catalogs to remove that from the family description. Actually, I could just do it in the spec for this project, or I could do it in the catalogs and make it permanent in all projects. But for a quick fix, simply just change that information right here. That will change it in the ISO configuration, or change it when it creates the bill of material. The other one is simply put, is going to be the text font I use. Will fix a lot of things. I'm going to switch over here, make one more change to those tables. Also show you one more way to do a table, because that used 4 drawings because of this area down here. I like more draw area. So I'm going to do a couple of things here. First, ISO themes, go to table style. I'm going to change the text font for my data from VI standard to VI narrow. Difference between it, if you were to look at that VI narrow one, which is under the text styles, it's exactly the same font as VI standard. I just have a width factor of 80%. That will fix some of them without me doing anything else here. Just change the text font. That's already updated my bill of material description there. I want fewer drawings, so I really don't want my cut list down here. So I'm going to go ahead and erase the cut list here. But if I'm going to put the cut list here, I want it to work with the bill of material. So for that, when I do the cut piece list here, under here, down here you'll see add to existing area. So I'm going to add it to the same area. You can see it placed it right below it. So basically, wherever the bill of material stops, the cut piece list will pick up. Now, because I put it in there again, one last thing it did was it did change these back to the colors ones. So I'm going to fix that real quick. Unlock. Change this to by block again, just like everything else, and lock them back. At this point, I've pretty much done everything I want to do, other than I want to show you one more thing about the north arrow, and I'm going to change this one to go lower right. So I just changed it right there and show you what effect that north arrow has on the actual drawing itself. So with those things done, we'll go ahead and save it. Go ahead and close this out. Take one last look at this drawing as it is right now, and you'll see it's working because north is that way. There's that ball valve that goes this way in its direction. So just changing the north arrow is going to readjust how it draws that isometric. We should be back to one drawing, so I'm going to remove those, and we'll do one last final production ISO run here. We'll call this in revision 4 just to give it a different name. Shouldn't take that long to create it, but basically that is how you set up your title blocks. That's how you set up those templates and what effect it has. And if you once you get those things set, and we didn't get into setting up all the isometric part, that would be way too long for this webcast. We're mainly looking at just the title block and the template at this point. But once it creates it, we'll open it up here. There you go. You can see this time it put the valve over here and it's working this direction because I changed the north arrow. Simply changing the north arrow adjusted how it draws my isometric. By having a larger area here for my ISO, I was able to fit it onto one page, and you can see how the bill of material, everything's on one nice line, no long pattern on ball valve, everything fits. I could also do some things to where my draw area, for instance, on my bill of material maybe was here, do a cut list working up that went halfway, and then a weld list working up halfway. Problem is that weld list would cause additional drawings just because there's so many welds. So it depends on what information you want here. If you're going to be using a weld list, I suggest a D-size drawing to get everything in there, which may affect what text fonts you use, because you definitely want to use 16-inch text on D size, because you're still going to probably plot it at a B size, and so you probably want to use 1/8-inch text. So making those adjustments, getting your title block set up, your whole goal is to get this to where when you run this isometric, you are done. You have nothing else to do because it has all the information it needs. That basically shows how to do that. So that concludes the actual portion here of what I want to show you. So let me take one quick look here and see if there are any questions. So give me a second to open it up. Looks like there are no questions. I will give you a second. If anyone has a question, you'll see a question section down there, and you can ask them, and I will do my best to answer them here in the next couple of minutes. All right, doesn't look like anyone has any questions. I'll keep my eye on it here as I conclude this, but this concludes this webcast. Like I said, there will be a recording of it. You'll be sent a link to the recording that you can watch at any time, and it will also show up on our blog. Got one question. Let me see if I can stretch this out to where I can see it. I'm going to pull it off of here where I can stretch it a little bit. I noticed that installation is called out. Is it shown graphically? Actually, I am showing it graphically right here because I put an installation back on the actual model itself. I put an ISO installation symbol at that point on a piece of pipe, and because I put that symbol on the piece of pipe, it showed the graphical symbol for it right there and the information that was placed on that piece of pipe. So it can be shown graphically. That's a whole different topic from the title block though, but that's using these symbols here. Any other questions? But how much insulation? I'm not sure what you mean there. Are you talking about how many feet of insulation or things like that? I mean, the size of the diameter, the thickness of it is their extent. That would only be shown if you put that in. I mean, it's not going to show it here on the isometric. You would have to put that information on the piping drawing. Most likely, that once that property is on the piping drawing, you could add that information to like the bill of material or something like that, because you could add that column. You could possibly, I've never looked at this or not, you could possibly redefine the symbol to pull that information from the piping drawing, as long as you know where it's calculated or where it's placed into the piping drawing itself. As far as I know though, out of the box, that information's not there. But it would be doable to, anything property information you put on a piping drawing, you should be able to pull into an isometric. It would just take a little bit of custom setup that's outside of the title block and what we're doing here. Any other questions? Okay. Well, that concludes the webcast. I appreciate every one of you that have joined in on it, and I'm sure we will be talking at some point in the future also. So we will be talking to you later. Goodbye.